This is another video on consulting, and consultancies to balance the one-sided particular point I was making with a previous video on McKinsey and BCG. If we stop talking about the East Coast of the U.S. and we stop talking about the harmful effect of 100 years of college professors inserting themselves in the business and making business look much more mentally complicated than it is, and putting economics much more centrally in business than it is, and devaluing product and devaluing passion and devaluing employees and the communities of work that become really rich in Europe and Asia, but very, very unrich in America. When we leave that and we look at consultancies that are not East Coast sick and that are not in America, and that are in Canada, that are in Asia, that are in Germany, Denmark in particular, French consultancies, which I love, Italian consultancies, which I've never met. I'd love to meet them. I haven't met them yet, you guys, if you want to meet. When we talk about these more humane, less sick cultures of consulting, it's a very simple dynamic. It has nothing to do with helping daddy's son leave behind the people who built the business and therefore wreck it. It has nothing to do with hiring a brain because you're an idiot, daddy's son. Other consultancies in the rest of the world have not grown up in this pernicious American environment. And they've not been influenced by professors at all, really. It's amazing. It's sort of how SAP crept up in the software world and defeated the Americans for manufacturing. No professors ruining it from the beginning. And so, what is this consulting, as it's usually done? The best consults that I've done, which had tremendous effect, changing the culture of an entire Fortune 500, Fortune 20 company. And I did it with a video. I didn't do it alone, but that's part of the dynamic that I'll explain. Basically, you have some internal faction in the company, and they want the company to change, but it's career risky to push within, as a subordinate monkey within a monkey hierarchy. Pushing upward is hard and risky for your career, and generally doesn't pay. And so you have to go outside the monkey hierarchy to a consultant who can directly bring your message to the top without wrecking his career with the company, because it doesn't have one. And that's really it. It's really the obedience and fawning and groveling that these monkey hierarchy, and you put 100 men together, you're going to get groveling, because men want to lord it over other men. It's an ugly, swinging glands, I call it, culture that they generate. And you'll see it in little tiny sports groups of 8 guys, and they bully one guy because everybody wants to feel on top. It's a monkey thing. And very few men are actually human, in the sense of having a brain strong enough to control the 2 little balls swinging underneath. And it's embarrassing to talk about that in that way, I know, for you and me both, but you got to be a little bit ugly in your language to convey the embarrassing monkeyness that you find in public displays at meetings by CEOs, where they will, crush somebody in an obvious way in a meeting to demonstrate their little monkey power. And you just gotta, put your hand on their shoulder and say, I'm sorry that life has been so tough and you still are so insecure that you have to crush other people to feel important. And maybe you can get some therapy someday and help you, and you won't need 5 boats and a cocaine addiction for your kids in order to make you feel normal. So you have these tremendous monkey vertical subordinate tendencies, and they make it so that information doesn't flow up in American companies if it's important information and big. But China has exactly the same problem as America, because it's tyrannical. Fathering is very tyrannical in America, very bad quality fathering in America, some of the worst in the world. And I'm not talking about, even in the developing world, they have better fathering than much American fathering. And then fathering in China is just terrible. I think the Chinese and the Americans are equally bad. And you'd have to say the Russians, the Chinese, and the Americans have got very, very weak, bad traditions of fathering. I don't know. I think it's a monkey thing. It has to do with big landmass. But I'm not smart enough to know it. Maybe some geographer can explain it to me. But they're very, very top-down, very, very tyrannical fathering, and very, very weak levels of interiorization of adult values by children, compared to enormous success in Finland, in Norway, in Denmark, in France, and in Japan, getting just test out as 8 to 10 times more interiorization of adult values by the time you're 12 years old when you're a kid in those countries. And in America, a 12-year-old test out is just simply not knowing the values of even their names, much less making them a personal part of their self-conscious control system. It's like the front brain just doesn't get developed in America until you're 25. But it's very well developed in Northern Europe and in Japan. It's not developed at all in China and America and Russia. So that's a big part of it. So the middle in China and America can't talk to the top because of the hormones that drench the male emotions that are there every day. Just men are so emotional at work, and they think that's professional and it's normal, and it's not. They can't see how emotional they're being at work in terms of victory and defeat and hierarchy and all that rank status crap. They waste 80% of every week on reports that are only there to make you look subordinate and remind you that I'm on top. So many reports just for that purpose. Xerox built this giant executive information system, but they had keystroke data on every keystroke on it. And you looked at the keystroke data, and it proved no executive in the history of Xerox ever typed a single keystroke to get data on running the business. Not a single keystroke in 20 years. The only time they used it was to look up how wealthy their personal stock portfolio was 3 times a day. Millions of dollars spent on this thing, all staff to maintain it, and the executives never used it for business purposes. Never. Not one keystroke. Of course, that's secret information, but I don't work there anymore. But I mean, that's the degree of hormones and hidden emotionality, unadmitted emotionality at work. The big monkeys lording it over the dumb little monkeys that they soak up money from. And you learn how to talk to big monkeys effectively and scarily. You have to have a friend on the New York Times, and so that if they take action against you, it becomes public and ruins their relation with their board. So you have to get that in place first. But you get, your little New York Times friend there, and you get some documentation on some things that probably shouldn't be public. And then you talk to the CEO, and you let him know that there will be consequences, and that they will be career consequences, not company consequences. Just for him. His relation to the board will be wrecked, but the rest of the company will go on without it. And his little siphon of millions every year will be shut off. So, and that's the context in which you talk to these little hormonal boys at the top. You don't talk to them as human beings with ideas. You talk to them as conniving wealth takers. Consultancies are basically the way that voice from the middle gets to the top. And so what's a successful consultancy? Well, it's pretty damn easy. You've got to be able to dramatically present to upper management and middle management. So you have to be breathtakingly attention-getting. You have to be able, and that's why I got hired. I got hired because they watched me in action at the Yankee Group presentations, etc. And when a question or a doubt from the audience, or a lie directly from a manager about his own company came out, and I had to escalate, I stayed professional, and I got mean, and I got accurate, and I escalated what we were talking about. I made the guy sorry he was born. I crushed the competition. I made the competition sorry he was born on the planet Earth at the same 1,000 years that I was born. So when I escalated, I knew how to keep professionality, keep it smooth looking, but be meaner than hell, and make him regret that he told a lie in public to me, or that he asked a dishonest question, or underneath the question was a greedy little psychopathic narcissism. I never said greedy, I never said psychopathic, I never said narcissistic in public at a meeting, because you don't want to hurt little monkeys that directly. They'll run over you in a parking lot if you do. But I did indirectly make it very clear to all 1,000 people present that that was what I was dealing with. And I know there are at least 2 CEOs that were thrown out within a year because of one question I asked at a stockholders meeting in these 2 companies. Just one question. And I didn't even have to stand up and say anything else. I just sat down and let the guy weasel out of the question in such an embarrassing way that all the people in the meeting saw that he was not ready to deal with that, and that he had screwed up there. And he made it evident that he was incompetent. And I didn't have to do anything except let him weasel out and avoid the question. And I phrased the question so that the ultimate importance to the stockholder of the answer to this question was unmistakably clear. And in that framing, I asked the question. So I had the 1,000 people sold on the answer before the answer came from the leader, and then the leader buckled and didn't give an answer. And the 1,000 people were left convinced that this is vital, and we didn't get satisfied by that guy. Not Green, but the guy who didn't answer Green's question. So there's a way to do this with just one question, if you're lucky. But, consultancy is a way to get to the guy at the top. And then, if you get an ally with him, if he buys into it, when you present, if his guys present it, he's threatened by it, career-wise. But if you, the outsider, present it, he can take you around and use it to sell to the rest of management, not knowing that there's a faction in management that already has invented the idea. That's why they chose this consultant to go present it to him. Now, CEOs are not stupid, so they know this goes on too. So, most CEOs are very bright people, and they know these dynamics go on. They're very busy, so they get distracted from it. And so they'll see this whole setup, and then you'll have a lunch with them about it, and they'll say, you've got some local people feeding you this stuff, Green, don't you? And I say, yeah, yes, sir, I do. And should we talk about their names here now? And I said, that will become evident in good time, I assure you. And I have been assured that. And so they find out who the guys are. And then the CEO's on board by that time, though. He's agreed to play his role in ballyhooing this message to the upper management levels that need it, in his opinion. And then that's what the faction wanted, but they couldn't directly approach him to do that. And so most consulting is like that. It's not bad. But it's a fix for the fact that monkey hormones prevent the middle pushing ideas to the top. Grint's book on leadership is the best single book on this. He goes throughout history, great leaders in history, showing how that listening to the voice of the middle was what made people great. And as soon as they got great enough that they became all monkey and no longer listened to the middle, they self-destructed almost immediately within a year.